So the Allman Brothers are one of the greatest twin guitar bands of all time. Whether it's Dickie Betts and Duane Allman, or Warren Haynes, Jack Pearson, or Derek Trucks, or any of the great guitar players that have played in that band. And one of the signatures of the Allman Brothers sound is their harmonized lead guitar parts. So today I'm going to walk you through two examples of this, and then I'll show you how you can get started creating your own Allman Brothers inspired guitar harmonies. Let's get into it. So this first example we're going to get into comes from the song Jessica, and this line happens in between the main melody. This is kind of a connecting part between the two A sections. So what I'm going to do first is play the two parts together, and then I'll isolate them and play them each individually, and then after that we'll get into what's going on in these parts and analyze this harmony. So this first example is in the key of A major, and this is a classic case of taking a line and harmonizing it in thirds. Now when we talk about thirds, we're talking about two notes that are separated by 3 scale degrees. So since we're in the key of A major, we can look at the A major scale, which is A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and then back to A. Now to harmonize this in thirds, we're going to start on A, and then we're going to go up 3 scale degrees, 1, 2, 3. So that A note gets paired with a C sharp, right? And then moving up the scale, we have B, that gets harmonized with D, C sharp gets harmonized with E, D gets harmonized with F sharp, E gets harmonized with G sharp, F sharp gets harmonized with A, G sharp gets harmonized with B, and then we're back to our A and C sharp. So that right there is the A major scale harmonized in thirds. Now when we look at this line, the lower part starts out like this. And the part above goes like this. And when we play those two parts together, we get this harmony of thirds. Right? And from here is where it changes slightly. And there's a reason for this. When we come to this E note, instead of harmonizing it in thirds, we're harmonizing it now in fourths. So again, this is just two notes separated by 4 scale degrees. If we go from E, 1, 2, 3, 4 notes up the A major scale, we get an A note. And then from here going up to F sharp, we're pairing that with a B. So this right here is a harmony of fourths. And the reason for this is a lot of these Allman Brothers harmonies use this kind of modified major scale where they leave out the major seventh, the G sharp note. So instead of playing a straight major scale, they're playing a 6-note scale. Right, this is a classic sound used a lot in a lot of the Allman Brothers tunes, and in these, particularly in these harmonies. So to avoid that G sharp, we switch from thirds to fourths right here. So and then after that, we're right back to our thirds, right? There's our A and C sharp, there's our B and D. Right, so this is the basic concept. We're taking a melody, we're harmonizing it in thirds until we get to the E and the F sharp, and then we're switching over to fourths, basically to avoid that G sharp and give us that kind of classic 6-note major scale sound that the Allman Brothers really use a lot. So I'm going to take this concept now and change the notes around and create a harmony of my own. And this is something you can experiment on your own. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this same rhythm as kind of a rhythmic template, kind of a phrasing template. So rhythmically, this is going to be very much the same, but I'm going to change the notes around. And I'm also going to expand the line twice as long. So instead of working all in one octave, it's actually going to move up the fretboard through 2 octaves. And I'm going to start in a different position, and I'm going to move up the neck. But you'll hear a similarity in the sound, but by learning the different parts, you'll kind of see how this connects together up the fretboard. So once again, I'm going to play the 2 parts in harmony together, and I'll have the 2 guitars on the screen, and then I'll play each part isolated individually. So this second example comes from the tune Blue Sky off the Eat a Peach record, and this part happens in the solos. This is kind of a little motif that they use to transition from one guitar solo to the next. And there's a really nice, interesting harmony part that happens here. So once again, what I'm going to do is play the 2 parts together so you can hear the harmony. And then I'll play them each individually so you can see what's going on in each part. Then we'll analyze the harmony, and I'll show you how you can use this as an inspiration to create your own harmony part. So for this second example, we're moving to the key of E major. And this is a little bit different approach to the harmonized twin lead guitar idea. This isn't quite as strict of a harmony like just taking a line and harmonizing it in thirds and fourths. This harmony actually jumps around quite a bit more and is a little bit more spread apart. But the way that I look at this example is actually like 2 different guitar licks kind of played simultaneously on top of one another that share the same basic rhythmic phrasing. So they all kind of line up together, but there's a much bigger spread between the two parts, and the actual harmonies kind of jump around quite a bit more. But it's kind of a cool approach because you can mess around with it and find licks that really work well together. So this first part is really all just kind of out of the E major pentatonic scale, and it's... Right, and it's really just on its own sounds like a great standalone lick. And actually, coming out of the guitar solo, this lick gets played a few times as kind of a motif before the harmony comes in. So it's sort of establishing this motif, and then I think the third time around, the harmony comes in and joins it, and they kind of use that as a way to transition from one solo to the next. But that's a great lick just in its own, on its own, right? Right, and the harmony part above it is actually a really cool lick on its own too. And this is kind of the reason that I sort of look at this as like just two separate phrases that happen to line up and work well together. But the upper part we get... right, which again is a very cool part. So we can take this kind of concept of taking a sort of simple major pentatonic based lick and then combining that with another lick on top that works equally well, that sort of lines up rhythmically, where the phrasing lines up so they sort of connect together. But the harmonies sort of vary and jump around, and it just makes for a very interesting, complex sort of arrangement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, use the same rhythm as sort of a template, right? A phrasing template. But I'm going to change up the notes. I'm going to start in different places, and I'm going to pair it up with a different harmony. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to play two different variations. So I'm going to start with sort of a lower part and then pair that with sort of a middle part. And then I'm going to use that middle part and pair that up with an upper part. So you can kind of see the sequence of how you can build and elaborate these harmonies and how one thing can kind of lead to the next. Really, it's sort of an endless, vehicle for experimentation and creating your own things. So to start out, I'm going to play my main harmony with the two guitars together on the screen, and then I'll play each of those isolated. Then I'm going to play another harmony where we use the upper harmony from the first example paired with yet a third harmony on top. So check it out. Guys, so hopefully this lesson has given you some inspiration to create some guitar harmonies of your own, and be sure to check out these tunes. A lot of the great Allman Brothers classics have this use of harmonized lead guitar stuff. So it's a really fun thing to do if you're playing with another guitar player. It's also just a fun way to add layers and texture if you're recording guitar at home. So if you'd like the tabs to these specific examples, and if you'd like this backing track to jam to, go check out my Patreon site. I've got hundreds of lessons up there with all kinds of great content, tabs and backing tracks and all that kind of stuff. So until next time, happy practicing and take care.